Hi everyone, my son and I are out here. We're working on a replacement of a fuel filter on an E46. This is a 2004 330i ZHP, but I know that other E46s are similar. So I'm kind of backing up a bit. Yesterday we tried to remove the fuel filter, which I've done once before, but I ran into a few problems this time that I want to show you guys. So number one is that the end of this vacuum line, doggone thing, the end of this vacuum line should have a piece of vacuum hose on it. So we're going to push that on and it's going to stick out, and it will, below the car where this is, it will go in here. But what happened was, when I got underneath there, is that the vacuum hose was old and had disintegrated, and it gets really hard and it just starts falling apart basically. So you go to auto parts store and you match up vacuum line size. It's simple enough to do it. So I think this was 54 cents, something like that. So that's the problem. But I want to show you also, or that it is a problem to anticipate when you're doing this job, I mean to say. So if you can get in here, so this line runs from here, this connector, and it snakes down through. There's a couple, it's going to be really hard to see because it's dark. There's a couple loops that once you're in your engine bay, you'll be able to find. And it sneaks down through there. Again, this disconnects in here. This eventually goes down underneath the car, and again, goes to the pressure regulator, connects in here with the new vacuum line that we'll have. So while I'm at it, I'm also going to replace this section because it's starting to do the same thing as the other at the other end did. So it's just cheap insurance. I'm going to take this off. This gets stuck on pretty hard after time, so I'm going to slice this and I'm going to pull it off, and we're going to clean that up so it's smooth like this other end is. So I'm just going to take a utility knife and carefully, not like I did a few weekends ago and cut the living daylights out of myself and needed 7 stitches. Just cut that vacuum line. See how it's just falling apart, disintegrating? And maybe that one cut will be enough to, whoops, see, it just breaks right off. Let's see. Oh, that's really on there. Okay, we'll have to cut it a little bit more. This vacuum line tends to want to move around, so I don't want to cut too deeply and cut the plastic part here. I don't want to do that. You know, it's said that replacing the fuel filter is a 30-minute job, and I think it would be under normal circumstances, but what I'm trying to demonstrate is that there are unexpected things that happen all the time, of course, when you're working on your car, and just to be prepared for it. I don't know, maybe have some new vacuum line at the ready. Look at this, good grief. Okay, now it's kind of coming off. Yeah, that's really on there. And also, I meant to say that I was getting really a lot of missing through RPMs, especially above 2,500. And I'm suspecting that the other end that goes to the fuel filter, there was a slight crack in it before I removed it and it disintegrated in my hands, that was letting unmetered air in. And I bet that was part of the problem. I'll be very interested to see if that cures the problem I was having. So we've got that cleaned up. Not too bad. It just falls apart. You just scrape it out and make sure it's smooth. Right, we've got the vacuum line cleaned up. The old vacuum hose removed off, the one that disintegrated. It was disintegrating. So we're going to work on this end first. So I want to cut that. And also, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around. You know, it's not going to have that special bend that came from the factory that BMW has, but it's going to work. It's very flexible, and as a matter of fact, this rubber hose is much nicer quality, so I think it has the potential to last longer. Again, this is just from your auto parts store. I want to cut this end so that it's even because it's bugging me that it's not. I'm just going to push it on. You can kind of see where the old one was. It went up quite a ways. It doesn't need to go on forever. Let's see, right about there is the end. So, what, an inch, 3/4 of an inch? I'm getting resistance to putting on now. I think that's enough. Now, when I cut this end, again, that I'm going to attach here, I want enough of it so that there's flexibility. A lot of times when you're working, you're taking this bellow off and you're doing whatever you're doing. So you want this to be flexible so that you're not putting strain on it when you're moving this around. Okay. I'm going to go, so the end right there, I'm going to go about just a little bit more. I'm trying to make a straight cut. Okay. And if that wasn't enough, or that didn't, yeah, that's shorter than I wanted. Let's see if it's going to work. Oh gosh, that hose is much nicer than the old rotted one. So see what I mean about the flexibility? I think that'll work, and it's not putting strain on it. So if this gets, I don't have it disconnected right now, of course, but if this gets moved around, I think you're going to be okay. So again, now this eventually goes down to the fuel filter. I'm going to snake this down and through, and I don't think you can see. We've tried to get the light in there. There are two little plastic hooks that these need to go through. Goes through one that's just below this hose as it starts to snake down below, and there's one even down further, but they are too small for me to put on this hose now and snake it down through. So I need to snake it through without that rubber vacuum line attached. I'll do that when I go down below and replace the fuel filter. So, and it's gonna be, so there's one right there. I know you can't see it. It will be obvious, and when you remove this and you pull it up and out through the engine, you're going to see these hooks that I'm referring to as you do that as well. So there's also those little hooks that are supposed to keep this wire. They swivel. Oh, I got my glove. They swivel, so you kind of got to get it in there in the first shot, or you might move it around and move it out of position. Oh my goodness, come on now. Oh, okay, I got it. So we'll push it down, down and down. But before I get too far, I need to remind myself where the other one is. And as I say, it is really down there. And I get this position down. Okay, and I know I'm in the way or there's not enough light. Okay, I see it, and boy, is that going to be. So I'm going to try to grab, pull this up. Shoot, tough to see, really tough to see. So it did end up being easier to push the hose from below up through this area. Again, there are two, and there you can't see them. I cannot get the camera in there. I'm sorry, guys, but there are two hooks, one down below and one up close, just underneath, just where this starts to curve down. So the one that's on the bottom, I got it from lying down underneath the car, pushing this up through it, push this up enough so that I could grab this end and snake it through the second loop. And now we're in good shape. We'll put our vacuum line on. I took my gloves off because they're starting to rip, and I can always work better with just my hands, but for a while there the gloves were useful, some of what I was doing. Anyway, we're going to put that on. It slips on really nice, and but it won't easily. I'm tugging on it pretty good. It's moving, but normal driving around and stuff, that's not going anywhere. That's nice and tight. Okay, the other aspect of changing out the fuel filter I wanted to show is getting the cover off, a protective cover for the fuel filter. It seems at first look pretty easy, but there's two screws that you need to get to at an odd angle that I've found. This is the second time I've replaced a fuel filter, and it was 50,000 miles ago, so I'd forgotten how strange this was. So I just wanted to capture this. So you've got these three here, which I'll show underneath in a minute. These are 8mm, and I just have a 1/4 inch ratchet and a little extension that I think I'm going to need of these weird screws I'll show you. So you've got these three here, but the two that are weird to get to, they don't look like this. So you're going to be hunting around thinking, oh, where are the other two like this? No. They are different, and I will show you those. And not only that, they don't look like they'll come out, but they do. So I'm going to get underneath. I'm going to show you where these three were. Get myself and my belly underneath the car. By the way, I only have this on ramps. Our driveway is slanted, so ideally you would get it, and if I give myself more time, I could have pulled it into the garage, cleared out the garage, got it in a jack stands, give yourself some more room. But you can do it on ramps. It's just tight. And it would have been great if I was in high school and 150 pounds instead of a 40-year-old and 190 pounds. But we'll give it a go. So, okay, this is toward this cover. Let me pull back a little bit. I'm sorry. Let's see how we can. So this cover, there's the fuel filter. This is the cover. This is the back of the car. So you've got one screw here. You've got one of the three here. See that? Then the third. Yeah, that is. Okay, so it's right there. Okay. The other ones you need to get to are up here. So I've got myself in the front of the car, and can you see that? You can see the one. There's two of them. I can't see if I can. Ah, there they are. See, 1, 2, right next to each other. So you got your control arm bushing right there. You've had fun replacing those, I'm sure. And then toward the driver's side are the two that you need to get. Those are the two tricky fasteners. Okay, I think I finally got a good shot of those. Again, up by the control arm bushing, driver's side. Now in hindsight, I wish I'd taken the time, not been so whatever, in a hurry, not in a hurry, distracted, and remove this. Alright, so I've got the cover out from underneath the car, and I just want to show from this, from the angle where there's lots of light, and you're not underneath there cramped, and you're trying to figure out what's what. These three are super simple. You'll see these obviously. There's 1, 2, 3. No problem. And again, 8mm. You don't need your extension for those. You'll just be able to do it like this. Plenty of room. Okay. The ones that I found difficult, and maybe others have not, or whatever, this just does not seem as intuitive. Again, right here is your control arm bushing, and back from that are to here. Now there are studs coming out from the frame, and these fasteners, see again, if you made the mistake I did, you're looking for 5 of the same type of fastener. But this is a little different. So these screw off of here. Again, studs coming out of the frame. And if you're underneath there and it's dark and you see this, get a close up, it looks like, well, where does the socket go on that? But in fact, because it's 8mm, it's small. It does fit. See? So when you're under there, maybe some guys have the dexterity enough, they don't need the extension. But if you can see, it looks like you've got room to do it, but there's stuff in the way. So you need to be back. I found it easier to be back. 1/4 inch extensions, 4 inches long or something. And you're here with it. This is a wobble one. It's a cheap one too. So it's once you get those loose, you can get, if you got long enough fingers, you can get in there and start unloosening it without the socket, and that's possible. I just did it. I wasn't able to demonstrate doing so when I was under there. It's difficult to hold the camera, it's dark, and use your tools at the same time, and it's really tough. So I'm hoping that having this out will show you that it's too tricky, guys. Now, I know some guys take screw down and then bend this down enough so that you have access to the fuel filter. If that works for you, I think that's fine, but for me, I like everything the heck out of my way. Again, it's cramped enough underneath there as it is. So in addition to the protective cover, there's this clamp held on by a 10mm nut. I took it off without filming, but I can just show that it sits up here around this. This is a rubber, piece of rubber. Those 2 tangs hook up back here. There's a stud on the other side. Fits through that hole. 10mm drops down. You kind of twist it out. No big whoop. All right. So we're going to work at the back of the filter first. We're going to take this clamp off. This clamp. You can't, for some reason, get a socket around those. I've bought replacement clamps that we'll put on, and you can with those. They're a nicer clamp. This also BMW clamp, so I'm not understanding the difference, to be perfectly honest. But we'll get these 2 off with a screwdriver, and fluid will pour out. And so I've got a catch pan. This lovely pink catch pan. Catch the fluid, and we'll go from there. All right, so I've loosened the clamps. I moved them down to where they meet the other clamps on the other end of the fuel hose. And what I'm going to do is get a better angle so people can actually see. Do you see the gap between the end of the fuel hose and the fuel filter? I'm going to put a screwdriver in between, and I'm going to push against the hose, leveraging the screwdriver against the fuel filter, and kind of wiggle those out. As they get older, they can become drier and brittle. These are still feeling pretty good. Got 111,000 miles on the engine, but I have replaced the fuel filter once, so they haven't been on there without being removed all those miles. So I can't, I'm sorry guys, I can't hold the camera and do this at the same time, so I'm going to stop, use the screwdriver method, and get those hoses off. Okay, so this is a different angle. I was talking about using a screwdriver. I really didn't mean that. What you want to do is take a pair of needle nose pliers, get in between the end of the hose and the fuel filter, and Let's see if I can do this. I'm gonna try to hold the camera and demonstrate how you want to gently see where I'm at with that. Get yourself, just wiggle it slow. It will come off. Real gentle. Grip hand ready. You can feel it making a little movement each time you pry. And the fluid is going to come out. I already depressurized it. You pull fuse 54. I forgot to tell about that. Run the engine till it shuts off. Okay, I'm getting closer. Can you tell I'm timid about the fuel? Fuel is spilling all over heck and gone. I also don't want to mess these hoses up because I'd just as soon not replace them. All right, let's take a look. After removing the first hose, this is the old filter, this is the new one. I've capped this end, the fuel line end, with one of those clear plastic caps that comes with your new filter. When I removed, and I also capped on the old filter, this one that I removed the hose from, I immediately transferred that line to the new hose, excuse me, the new filter, and I've got my new clamp on there. And so rather than this continuing to pour out fluid, it can just drain into the filter. It's capped, it's not going to go anywhere. Regarding removing that hose, I talked about using needle nose pliers to wiggle it off. At some point as you get toward the end, you can grab the fuel line rubber hose with your hand and wiggle it off. It's just going to be a messy fuel spill. I don't know of any way to get around it, even if after you've depressurized. So I just want to show how this looks, and that will help minimize some of the mess. I'm now going to take that hose off, and I'll repeat the same process. I'll cap the old end of the old fuel filter, transfer the rubber fuel hose immediately there, and making sure I put my new clamp on first, and then I'll tighten stuff up and we'll take another look. Alright, so we've got the camera positioned and ourselves positioned. We're getting better at this as we go along. I want to show how to remove the clamp and the hose from the fuel filter. We've got the rear end completed. Well, I didn't put this clamp on, but I will. I gotta tighten that clamp, but that's done. And again, the old one has that clear clamp from the new filter that came in the packaging. So now we just still need to get the old one off. Here's what's remaining: this clamp, that hose. So it does require a screwdriver. As I said, you can't get a socket around this style of clamp. All right, now I got the screwdriver on better. All right, wiggle that hose up and toward the opposite end. Get it all the way off the fuel filter nipple there. Now it's out of the way. Now, each of these hoses, and the rear ones, one was really tough to get off, the other was easy. I could practically take it off with my hand. Let's start with the screwdriver and gently prying. I work slowly and intentionally. I try not to be herky-jerky and You guys might find that you can do this faster, and if you can, that's awesome, great. I wonder if I could grab one end, wiggle it. Oh, it's on there pretty, that one's pretty tough, so let's see. I need those pliers. Okay. There we go. So I position myself differently. And now it's squeaking off, going off. Again, maybe you don't have to be so ginger with this, but I just assume I don't want to rip this hose. Like I say, this is enough work without having to run to the port store and get another section of fuel hose. Okay, we're getting there. Sort of twisting and pulling up on those pliers. All right, I'm gonna set the pliers down. I'm gonna see if I can work the rest of this with my hand. I can see that I can, so now it'll just wiggle off really nicely. Isn't that a great sound? Okay. And there we go. Yay! A little bit of fuel dribble out. I've got this really cool size can. It's going to fit that filter really nice. Get that out of our way. All right. So, I'm going to take the old hose clamp off. Bye-bye. And I'm going to drop it. Or I didn't want to drop it. That's fine. I'm going to get a new clamp. I ordered these from Auto House AZ. And so that wasn't too much fuel dribble. We will get the new hose clamp on. I want to make sure I'm positioning it properly. So that's going to be fine. Now, fuel has been running in from these rear hoses into the filter, so it's probably full of fuel. But again, I've had it capped. So I want to get this as upright as I can. I'm going to take this cap off and slide the fuel hose immediately on it and see if I can be super dexterous doing that. Okay. Get myself underneath here. Can you see all right, camera? Yep. Okay. So there's some flexibility here. You can bend this. I'm going to pop that cap off, and there wasn't much fuel coming out of the filter, so that's nice. These are easier to wiggle on. And there we go. And so, let me try one more time. I want to make double sure. Okay, yeah, that needed a little bit, pushed on a little bit more. So we'll tighten this up. It's a 5mm socket, by the way, in these new clamps. They go on quite nicely. This one down here too needs to be tightened, and we're going to do that now. All right, working on the vacuum line. We've got our new piece of hose. It's much nicer quality and probably won't deteriorate so quickly. And here's the end of the line. Again, runs up to the air intake. And we'll just, so I slip this on, real easy. And there, it goes in. I'm setting the camera down. I'm just going to talk through it. You just push it in as far as you can get it in. The flexible vacuum hose with the stiffer plastic